Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Built to Scale. Today, I'm sitting down with Autumn McFarland, who is a fractional COO. Autumn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Autumn, today I want to talk about something, that a lot of people tend not to talk about. We talk about companies moving, right? Technically, they're moving, but really, they're not moving forward. They're stuck. Revenue's stalled. Margins are getting tighter. Reaction speed isn't there. They're not executing. The founder tends to be stuck in the middle of it all. His stress levels are through the roof, but profits are down, right? The team's growing. And in the middle of everything, they're like, I don't know what to do because I'm doing everything right on all cylinders. So can you break down the 4 triggers that tell you when a business is stuck and what that looks like from a fractional COO point of view? How can you tell when a business is actually still breathing, but not growing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so I want to be transparent and say I never know from the outside, right? Oftentimes, the public image of a company is very different than the inner workings and that underbelly that you see. So I tend to come into a company or be asked to come into a company once the problems have surfaced and are pretty obvious. So I want to give a 2-prong answer because I've built my own business and I've sat alongside friends and colleagues who are building their own business. And I've been able to identify when the track is getting off in the wrong direction and things are headed towards chaos. And I've also been able to identify very quickly when I get dropped in and see chaos firsthand. So let's talk firsthand because I think that's what people will primarily care about at this point, simply because a lot of people feel like the roof is on fire and they don't know what to do and how to put it out. So the first thing that I look for is CEO or founder burnout. I often find that what happens in a small to medium-sized business is that the company vision, the mentality that the founder started that business with gets diluted over time naturally. And if a CEO or founder hasn't been very clear about that vision and hasn't found a way to clearly convey that vision to every hire that they make, things get siloed. So when I first come in, I'm going to look for burnout in the CEO or founder, and I want to know where that burnout is coming from and what bottlenecks they're seeing. Next thing I'm going to look at is how siloed are the departments? How much communication is there? How much cross collaboration is there? What are the main goals that everybody is focused on? And are there main goals? Does every department have a separate goal? Third, I'm going to look at what the perceived concept is of the product. A lot of times when you are in a company, you're in a closed vacuum, right? You love your product because you're working hard on building it every single day. But the perceived image of what your product is and the customer feedback that you're getting is essential to actually understanding how your product is landing. So what your intention of your product is and how your product is being perceived can often be a huge bottleneck point.
100%. I see that all the time. And what I tell people is basically, before you go and you do all this R&D and spend time on it, go see if there's a market fit for it. Don't even make the product, but see if you could pre-sell it, right? Go see if you can pre-sell that product. You get a couple orders, then it's something traction starting to build. But we see, in my business, we see people that have these great ideas. Look, we're entrepreneurs. We always have great ideas. It's almost too much. We have shiny object syndrome. We want to move on to the next idea. But we tend to think they're all the greatest, and there may be no market value there. Just because we love it doesn't mean somebody else is going to.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to a young woman yesterday who started a business about 1.5 years ago, and she was trying to get feedback about how I would use this product as a COO. And she wasn't pitching to me because it's not pertinent to the industry I'm in now. But one of the things that we uncovered is I said, what's the ROI on this? And what is the cost savings and or revenue value that you will bring to a company? She couldn't answer those questions. And I said, that's your pain point. That's what people are looking for, right? Bottom line is that people want to know, how is this bringing value to their company, or how is this making or saving me money? Which actually brings me to the last thing I look at. Who's owning revenue? And is revenue declining because manufacturing or overhead is increasing, or is revenue declining or stalled because the product has priced itself out and you can no longer increase that price while overhead is increasing, and now you need to align something differently with your business model. So those are the four areas that I first look at and that I find most essential to the strong foundation of any building business or growing business.
I love that because a lot of founders that I've worked with, a lot of business owners, they immediately think the problem is a sales problem. When growth slows, we have a sales problem. And sometimes, you know what? It is a real issue, but
Yeah.
something's usually broken in the machine behind the sales machine, right? Maybe it's a
Yeah.
lead gen problem, the systems, the handoffs. It could be a customer experience problem. It could be, well, there just may be no market. So if there's no market for this product, what are you trying to sell at the end of the day? You know,
Absolutely.
how do you know when a revenue problem is real or it's actually an operational problem?
Yeah, so that goes back to the fourth bullet point that I brought up is really who is owning revenue. I've walked into um, companies and nobody is actually owning P&Ls. There are no P&L reports. There's no tracking of what is happening. Someone is looking at dollars in, but no one's
Mhm.
looking at dollars out. And so someone is saying, money's coming in. Why don't I have any money? And the way I know, so first of all, is someone owning it? If no one's owning it, I pretty immediately assume that it's an operational issue because if no one's actually watching what's happening, as we all do, right? You can go to
Yeah.
Starbucks every day and spend $5 or $10, and at the end of the month, go, where did all that money go? Slow leaks, slow leaks are problematic. So I look at that. And then the other thing is I'm a really big advocate of looking at customer feedback. I have a lot of experience building customer success teams and running customer success teams. And I find that when you are lacking real customer feedback or when you're not willing to take that customer feedback,
Mhm.
your revenue might be declining because you're not listening to what the market is demanding, as we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And to me, that's an actual revenue problem that you're not aligning with the value of your product isn't aligning with what the market is willing to pay for your product.
We see a lot over here is somebody can come to us and maybe they sell four different products. Maybe it's four different services, right? But they don't know which service actually has the best margin, right? However, they're committing capital to each product equally, right? Most of the time, what we recommend is listen, get rid of three products, keep one, focus on it. You want to add another one? Let's make sure we know what the margins are. There's no reason to have all these ancillary products if they're not bringing in revenue is one thing, but if they're not creating profits for the company, the headache's just simply not worth it.
Yeah, and I want to put a small twist on that. I agree with you completely. My experience in fashion gave me a little bit of a different outlook on that, which
Okay.
is there are different segments of products. There are products that are hooks, and there are products that are lifelong revenue drivers.
Hmm.
And sometimes your hooks aren't your revenue drivers, but they're your
Hmm.
hooks.
Yeah, like
And
a
so
lost leader, right, to get somebody
a
through the
loss
door.
leader.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in today's world that we're living in, a lot of people get frustrated, I find, especially cross generationally. Well, it didn't used to be like this. People used to just trust me when I was selling, right? Or
wait,
like,
wait, wait for the next 3 years, because it used to be like this. AI's doing everything.
right. Exactly. And I think, we can all be upset. We can wish for better times past, and we're living in a reality. And the reality is people want to trust a product or a business before they give their money to it. People have the autonomy now to do research, to look at reviews, to understand what a company is, to understand who the founders are, to understand who you are as a CEO. So be transparent, tell a real story, make sure that you're being honest about what your product is and who you are as a business, and look at your customer psychograph, right? If you want to be going after 40-year-olds with, 250K income and more, then align your product to that. If you want to be going after college students, then align your product to that. But I think a lot of companies want one audience and are actually marketing or designing for another. And you need to break that down to understand what your product is, who it's for, and who it's helping.
Now, what size companies do you generally work with? Are they usually startups? Are we well beyond that? Are they, because at different levels of revenue or even team size, you have different problems, right? I think in
Absolutely.
startup world, you have 10 people, cool, right? We can all work. We can use email and we can use spreadsheets and we're good. But when we get to 11, 12, 13, 14, there's no systems and processes in place. It happened in my company where it was just the simplest issue was email sucks. We get 90 million of them. We can't go back and forth. There's too many emails coming in. We need a better
Yep.
communication channel, right? And then we went down the rabbit hole. Okay, we're going to use this one. We're going to use this one. We finally settled on Slack, right? But
Yep.
that little tweak changed the efficiency of our company, just having a proper communication platform, right? Where everything was the hub.
Yeah. And then you hear that Slack alert in your sleep, right? That's my, that becomes my nightmare.
uh,
Um, yeah, I've worked for true startups where I am, I started my own business. So that was a, one woman show. I've worked for startups where we have been sitting around a table in a conference room, waiting for the first order to come through, staring at an old school printer. This was before, the internet was massively transparent as it is in the last 10 years. And then I've worked for companies up to, 500 employees. My favorite is that middle zone. My favorite is the 10 to probably 50 or 100 employees. I find that that is where bottlenecks happen, burnout happens, structure breaks down. And just like you're saying, people are relying on the systems that they're using. They don't have the time to stop and rebuild something new, but those systems start deteriorating the capability of the business to actually grow.
yeah. Burnout is definitely one of the biggest things. I mean, I've experienced it. I know a lot of people that do it. But
Yeah.
as a CEO and a founder, in my opinion, you have to sell. You got to sell your company all the time, and you need to drive your staff, your employees. They have to understand the vision inside and out. If you stop driving that vision, you're going to stop believing in that vision, right?
Yeah.
And then your employees are just going to follow. So not only are you going to be burnt out, but the whole team is going to be burnt out as well.
Yeah, I agree. Keeping passion forward is really important. And that's actually one of the things that I look for when I'm looking for companies is, are the founders or owners just doing this because they're stuck on a treadmill that they got on and they don't know how to get off? Or are they doing this because they still love it and believe in it and believe in themselves and want to build something? And that's a small personality trait, but to me, it makes all the difference in the motivation and ability to grow a company.
So let's talk about that for a second. Let's say you go inside a company and they have good teams, but the founder's the problem. How do you have that conversation?
I'm a very direct person, so I have that conversation very directly. Now, I have a master's in educational psychology and human development, so
Mhm.
I'm very passionate about the way the brain works and about human connection and human interaction and how what we do and how it lands can be different. And so I use what I call cookie communication. I start by showcasing all the brilliance that has truly been brought in by this individual, all the points of growth and stability and um, income that they have done single handedly. And then I say, and now we've got to, you brought me on to tell you where I see bottlenecks. And I've got to tell you where I see the biggest bottleneck. And I don't say it's you as a person, CEO or founder. I say, I can only imagine that after growing what you've grown, you hit a point where you're either burnt out, you've lost perspective, you're in a vacuum and you actually can't get the feedback that you need because people are telling you what you want to hear, or you haven't had the proper support. And so I see this as you CEO title or founder title are the problem. You person underneath that aren't the problem. And that tends to land in a way that is, okay, yeah, wow, I've been holding the weight of the world. And some people don't like hearing it and it's caused issue. And some people feel seen and heard and like they've actually gotten the feedback they've been looking for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I agree with that. Being a business owner is lonely. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
fortunate enough to have a business partner, so when things go wrong or something, we can lean on each other. But sometimes you gotta put on that smile. You gotta drive the staff, and things might be burning down in the back, but you gotta keep pushing forward, right? You gotta keep that game face on, right? It's
Yeah.
tough. So I'm actually involved in a lot of mastermind groups, business owner network groups, and it's the same thing. It's lonely at the top, right? So I would suggest that any business owner out there, get yourself around groups that have other business owners in there, because not only will they be there for emotional support for you, but they'll help compress time and help you fix problems immediately. You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
we met in a group like that.
That's right. Yeah. And to have it, I actually felt that in the last meeting. I felt like I'm finally hearing myself talk and it's not me talking. You know, there's an empathy there that you don't feel once you get above, I would say, a director level.
Mhm.
You kind of start feeling that loneliness in the role.
Well, here's the other thing that I've found, right? And I used to be guilty of this too. Asking for help was weakness. Growing up in Staten
Yeah.
Island, growing up in New York City, nobody cared. You don't ask them for help. You just figure out. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you keep going.
Yeah.
Boy, was I wrong. And how did my business flourish and things got better right after I realized asking for help is actually a superpower, right?
Yes.
But most business owners out there, everybody's asking them for something. They have to be the end all be all to everybody. So they don't know how to ask for help sometimes. But the minute that they actually harness that superpower, I guarantee their business is going to change and they'll be able to unload so much stuff off their plate. It'll be superly beneficial to them.
Yeah, and actually you bring up a great point. That's one of the bottlenecks I look for is the owner the final or CEO, the final decision maker or founder, I should say. I should say is the founder or CEO the final decision maker and the pinch point for areas that are outside their expertise. And if I notice that happening, I know there's a huge organizational and operational problem
Mhm.
because the best company owners, in my opinion, and, Elon Musk, personal opinion aside, he knows his limitations and he knows what he needs to bring in the best in
Yeah.
a department or another because he doesn't know how to do it. And that to me is one of the strongest skill sets of a CEO and founder that you can find.
Do you subscribe to, the Gino Wickman EOS operating system theory where you have the visionary and the integrator?
Um, no, I don't.
Okay. Okay, tell me more
Um,
because a lot of
I,
people swear by it, but it could be the fad of like the last couple of years, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I think structurally you need both of those things to, right? I think opposites attract. When you have two sides of one coin, of course, things run smoother. But I think that if you have two different people who are so specifically focused that they can't understand the adaptability of when those two areas have to collaborate and cross
mhm,
over, I think that's when you get a lot of siloed departments because you have two different mentalities within one company trying to drive to the same goal. And I don't think that works well. So I think that as long as you have people who are self aware and empathetic for not necessarily having a recognition of what one side is thinking, but they have an understanding to trust the side that they don't understand. I feel like I'm
mhm.
talking in code here. I think it works, but I've seen too many companies where you have, in my mind, it's like creative and operations, right? And they don't understand each other and they don't care to, and they,
That's exactly what
and
it is.
they're just hitting up. You're just hitting your head against a wall. So I think trust. I think it comes down to trust. Operations has to trust that creative knows what they're doing, and creative has to trust what operations knows what they're doing. And if you have that trust, I think you can build incredible things.
So, when somebody is feeling stuck, when revenue is not growing, margins are tightening up, the last thing somebody wants to do is, well, we just said it, ask for help or write another check for an expert to come in, right?
Yeah.
What do you tell those founders right now?
I tell those founders that if you need to make one, if you can't make any hires, I tell those founders find the person you trust within the company the most and empower them to drive a little bit. Empower them to say, this is the biggest problem I see, and I think we need to fix it. If you have the capital to bring in one person, bring in somebody who knows operations, bring in somebody who isn't going to be your best friend, who isn't going to tell you what you want to hear, who isn't going to come in and is looking to just fit in and make things smooth, but is coming in to actually make change, to identify the problems, and to get your company back in alignment with your long-term goals.
It's difficult as a business owner to do that, right? And I see it firsthand all the time because unfortunately, when revenue stalls, sales are down, I'm the first person they call because they need money. All they do is throw money at the problem, but they don't have the money. So they borrow the money, right?
Yeah.
And they never actually close the holes in the bucket. So the bucket just leaks. So they're throwing good money after bad, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think that they need to align themselves immediately or have some type of advisor, from the beginning, right? From the beginning.
Yeah.
It's hard for a business owner to sit there and admit that it's my business. I need help with it. I see it all the time.
Yeah. And my process when I come in, so let's live in a world where they can make one hire and I'm that hire, or a fractional
Mhm.
COO or a COO is that hire. When they
Can you
bring
can we
that
actually
person,
let's back up for a second because some people
yeah, yeah,
listening may not even know a fractional is available, right? They
yeah.
may not know what it is. Most people when they think fractional, they're thinking fractional CFO or oh my accountant handles that. Yeah, he works for me. Can you explain exactly what that is so the audience gets a better understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. So a fractional employee at a C suite level, especially, is somebody, in my opinion, who has mastered the ability to know where their limitations begin and end. And if your business doesn't have the revenue to invest in an executive level right now for the next, let's say, 2 to 5 years, but you know that you need to solve a problem in the next 12 months, a fractional executive is someone who comes in, they're not looking for a corner office. You can stick them in the conference room, right? They are looking to come in, to get to know you, to figure out your long term goals, to do departmental audits, to do employee audits, to get your company back where you intended it to be, and to align what you wanted to happen with what will actually happen so that you can breathe for a minute. Because I know that being a business owner, founder, CEO can feel like holding your breath for long periods of time. And to me, a fractional is saying, let me give you a breath and then we'll figure out what happens next. But, we bring no ego. The fractional executives bring no ego because we're not here to take someone else's role or, like I said, get the best office or win the award at at the company party. We're here to fix the problems, to patch the holes, and to get your business running again, and to leave you in a better position to invest in long-term solutions that you need next.
No, I love it. And especially look, when you're in the forest and things are going wrong, the only thing that you see in front of you is that tree. It's really
Yeah.
hard to see your way out of that forest. So I guess when you come in, you're coming in with not just staring at the tree, you see the overall forest, right? But
Yeah.
you drop in like SEAL Team 6 and lead them out of that forest. I love it.
I do. And I also want to say, a lot of hires, people think, okay, well, I'm going to need 6 months, right? You make a hire, you've got to give them 6 months. Fractionals don't come in with that mentality. My mentality is 7 days. Day one, I have to sit down with the CEO, founder, figure out what their long-term goals are and what their company vision is. Days 2, 3, and 4, I'm meeting with the entire team, heads of departments and everyone below that. I want to know pain points. I want to know what's going well. I want to know what they need. I want to know what they're not getting. And then days 5 and 6, I am meeting back with that CEO or founder, and I am letting them know what I'm hearing and the feedback and how their goals align or do not align with the team underneath them. And day 7, I'm designing out KPIs and new JDs to hand out to the entire team to make sure that everyone understands the company motto, the company vision, knows exactly what their role is, what their scope is, and knows what the next 90 days of their job effort looks like. So fractionals don't have time. They need to, like you said, drop in like SEAL 6, get it done, make sure everybody's aligned. Because most companies, when you're bringing in 20, 30, 40, 50 million a year, you can't pause for a month. The machine is going.
You
You've
can't.
got to you can't. So a good fractional executive will drop in and you will be the pace. They stick to your pace. They are not setting the pace. And that's when you have somebody who is going to help you out of that forest.
I love that. You come in, we get the job done. Where there's no wasting time, no niceties. Let's
Yeah.
go. That's
Yeah.
the way you got to be because everything's going to keep moving. So you got to be
Yeah,
there to move
absolutely.
alongside with it. So, what's one thing that everybody listening to this podcast right now, if they're thinking about bringing on a fractional or bringing on a COO, what's the one thing that they should be asking themselves right now?
Do you know what your company goals are, what your personal goals are, and what your company goals are? Are you ready to hear what needs to happen to make that shift?
Hmm.
And what is your top priority? I think there are three options. I'm going to make it pretty simple: money, your team, or a balance of money in your team. And you need to know that going in, because I'm a people first COO. I want to preserve the team you have. I believe that if you've invested in these people, I should invest in these people. But you need to know what what path you want to take. Do you want to make as much money as possible in the shortest amount of time? Do you want to preserve your team and make sure they're okay, even if it means giving up some of your revenue? Or do you want to find a way to get as much money as possible with as many of the team members you have, knowing that some are going to have to fall off and you might miss out on some revenue? Knowing those three things, right? Personal goals, company goals, and how you want to preserve your staff and your revenue longevity
Hmm.
will help that incoming COO or fractional COO identify what they need to do first.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a certified exit planner, so we help people,
Okay.
get their company to where they need to be to sell.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: most people's businesses are not transferable, right?
Yeah.
And here's the problem: 80% of a business owner's wealth is tied up in their business. They don't usually have outside investments. It's all concentrated there. So if we can't transfer that wealth to somebody else, we cannot extract that wealth out of the business. So just like you said, what are your goals? Is the goal to just make as much money out of this business and let it die? Are we trying to sell this business? But okay, if my goal is to, I don't know, go live on a beach in California somewhere, go live on a beach in Hawaii, how much money do I need? So this is where I would bring in a financial advisor. What do we have in
Yeah.
assets, right? And then we would reverse engineer the whole process. Today, your business is worth, let's use numbers here, $1 million, right? Let's call it $3 million. We can get a three multiple. Okay. If we sell it, we get $3 million. We need to account for taxes. You only have, I don't know, $500,000 in retirement accounts. That's $1.5 million, right? After
Yeah.
taxes, maybe you got to pay a couple other people out. So maybe if you're lucky, you walk away with, I don't know, $2 million. Can you really live on $2 million? You're 45 years old. You want to sell the company. It's not going to work. But what if we
Yeah.
brought in an operator to bring you out of the business more, right? Have you work on the business rather than in the business, which then we already make the company more transferable because you're not in the day-to-day business every single
Right.
day. Therefore, the multiple goes higher. Going from $1 million company to three multiple to $1 million company with a five multiple is a big difference,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? So I
Yeah.
think people should be thinking about hiring you from the beginning because you can help them. You'd be able to help them actually exit plan beforehand, because all exit planning is good business strategy throughout the whole timing, throughout the whole
Absolutely.
time of your business.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of people ask what industry I work in, and I've grappled with that question because I'm pretty industry agnostic. And what you said just brought up a great point about the fact that I come in and build the foundation. I don't
Hmm.
care if you're building a hotel or apartment buildings or, a single family home or a shopping mall. I build the foundation. You tell me what type of foundation you need, how strong you want it, how capable you want it, and I will get that piece done. Now you go build whatever you want to on top of it. When, the first hire is a big deal. A lot of founders and CEOs and owners have been at that point where it's a big deal to bring in that first hire. And I would urge everyone to make sure that that first hire is operationally minded and understands how to build a solid foundation.
Yeah, I love that. Because at the end of the day, if we don't know what their goals are, we can't help them. If the financial
No.
advisor tells us they need $10 million to retire and they're nowhere close, we got to break the bad news to them and figure out how we can get them that 10 million so they don't
Yeah.
change their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So, but Autumn, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I think you gave everybody a lot to think about. I appreciate you being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Let's go!